Can we consider values and spirituality to be the practical foundations of diplomacy in contemporary society? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once more. It's another edition of your discursive, insightful program, Global Insight on For You Media. Welcome to this discursive program where we dive, of course, into the intersections of value and spirituality and also diplomacy. Of course, today's programs, we are going to explore how fostering a deeper connection to values and spirituality can serve as the solid foundation upon which effective diplomacy can be built, especially in a more connected world. Can the realms of values and spirituality merge to redefine the very essence of global relations? Thank you once more. If you are just tuning in, this is Global Insider. With a panel of experts, we're going to indulge or convert compelling discussions that will give understanding to the place of spirituality and our core values in defining the world's diplomacy, especially in today's interconnected world that is facing a lot of problems at every level. Welcome once more. I'm going straight away to uncover the panel to the United States. Let's welcome Achilles EKEU, who is a banker and also international financial expert. He's joining us from Washington, D.C. Hello to you and thanks for joining us this day, Mr. EKEU.
Where you are located in the world. Thank you for inviting me once more for this beautiful program. Doris, appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
It's always a pleasure, and hoping to have a fruitful discussion as usual with you pertaining our topic for discussion this day. And let's move now to Russia to meet Yulia BERG, a political scientist, also founder GLOBUS Experts Club. Hello to you, dear Yulia. A pleasure having you this day.
Hello, good afternoon. Happy to join today's program.
As we continue to analyze issues of utmost importance to India, we're being joined by Professor JAGDISH KHATRI, a speaker, writer, and also global analyst. Welcome once more, Professor.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. It's a wonderful that you provide me opportunity to share my humble views on different topics. And Africa is very close to my heart. So if it is going to be the era of AI, so I say it is not artificial intelligence, it is Africa plus India.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you for making out time to be with us this day. Starting straight away with the analysis on this topic for discussion, let me kick off with you, dear Yulia. We're talking about values and spirituality and the place of these two key words in diplomacy, especially in contemporary society. So what could you, how could you define this term diplomacy, especially in international or foreign relations?
Well, we see at the moment, we see that international relations and the standards even of communication in international relations have gone quite low. So we see it during the briefings of the officials, we see it during various interactions and meetings of heads of states and the statements that they're making. So it's quite worrying that the overall even level of, let's say, education, the ability to make explicit and complex comments on the current events has deteriorated quite a lot. a lot of people are laughing right now when they hear another not really smart quotation coming from Annalena Baerbock, for instance, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Germany. So we see that in many cases, people responsible for fates and destinies of millions of citizens of their countries and other countries, they do not have the necessary knowledge. But another problem is that it feels like, especially during the current geopolitical clash, that the very foundation related to the values, to the spiritual aspects of the counterparts, do raise quite a lot of question, because destructive policies that imply that killing millions of people is acceptable, especially when those people are children, females, civilians, and we have heard quite a lot of comments of the kind coming from politicians from different countries, especially from the United States, starting from Hillary Clinton to Victoria Nuland and many other ones, who would mention that they, in one way or another, think that it's acceptable to have millions of civilians dying for some goal that they set in terms of their external policies. So I think that today's discussion is very important due to the fact that low quality and let's say not enough attention to the values and spiritual life and low quality of communications in terms of foreign policy would lead us to unnecessary destruction that could be easy to avoid if we were thinking strategically in terms of development and preservation of human lives.
How can we use our core values and spirituality to bring resolve to some of the problems that the world is facing at this particular moment? Coming to you, Achilles EKEU, we want to understand holistically how you view this topic, values and spirituality as the foundations of diplomacy. You may want to have an holistic approach on the topic before we get into the particularities.
Yes, thank you, Clarice. Spirituality and values play an increasingly important role as foundations for modern diplomacy. While diplomacy has traditionally focused on negotiation, bargaining, and deal diplomacy, and deal making between different states, there is growing recognition that incorporating religious concerns and spiritual values can help address complex global challenges and identity-based conflicts that exceed the grasp of conventional diplomatic approaches. The concept of faith-based diplomacy has emerged, which involves integrating an understanding of religious sentiments and values into diplomatic practices. So faith-based diplomacy recognizes that religion is often central to the strife taking place around the world, whether as a root cause or a mobilizing force. So by engaging religious leaders and communities, diplomats can penetrate the heart of conflicts and uncover deeper interests and values that enable reconciliation. So some key aspects of faith-based and spiritual diplomacy include, for example, fostering cross-cultural and interfaith dialogue to build relationships and mutual understanding, maintaining harmony and peace amidst conflicting religious ideologies by emphasizing shared spiritual values, again, restoring political order and social healings after conflict through a holistic approach that addresses spiritual needs, and finally shaping national identities and ethos in ways that reduce antagonism and promote collaboration between people. So interfaith initiatives in particular show promise as a strategy within faith-based diplomacy to alleviate religiously motivated violence and promote policy goals as seen in countries like Indonesia and the United States. By familiarizing themselves with the religious practices and values that affect daily political affairs in different cultures, diplomats can more effectively build bridges and identify common ground. So at the same time, challenges remain in systematically integrating spirituality into diplomatic realm. Many governments have become less attentive to religion and are constrained by principles like the separation of church and state. Overcoming long-standing prejudices, cultural resistance, and the association of religion with violence will require persistent efforts. Ultimately, while spirituality should not override other factors, it provides an important lens for understanding human behavior and identity beyond just political and economic terms. So as faith-based diplomacy continues to develop, it may sow the seeds for deeper, more lasting forms of social transformation by drawing on the power of religious values to promote healing, justice, and peace. So equipping diplomats with the skills and sensitivities to engage in this spiritual dimension will be vital in an age of globalization where religious identities and values are resurgent on the world stage. Thank you.
Chair Achilles EKEU, and we look at how these can help solve issues like human rights, and of course even bring a common ground, like you've underlined in your analysis, a common ground between countries across the global world. We continue with you. Haven't heard what EKEU and Yulia said regarding our topic for discussion this day. Professor JAGDISH, with this, can we envision a world where compassion, empathy, and understanding take precedence over power dynamics and even self-interest? I quite remember in one of your books you highlighted issues of how you can discover yourself through, you can improve yourself through discovering yourself, and how can we maybe merge this with the aspect of core values and spiritualities in solving the world's problems in today's society?
Thank you. Thank you, madam. First of all, it's a very auspicious day today. Eid Mubarak to all the millions of Muslim listeners who are listening to this program. And I wish this Eid ushers in an era of peace, progress, and prosperity for all in the world. So, referring to the topic, I have always felt that, you see, darkness is nothing but absence of light. And similarly, conflict is nothing but absence of trust. So there is something missing in our current efforts. Any inhuman activity being carried out reflects that there is absence of right values, ethics. Because what we see today, the role of diplomacy has to be to maintain peaceful relationships, to maintain coexistence, to cooperate, to collaborate, and help each other in growth. But what we are seeing today is if conflicts are going on and on, and millions of people are suffering or dying in the process. So we are witnessing an era which we should be ashamed of, that our diplomacy is not doing its role properly. On the one hand, we provide armaments worth millions of dollars to the aggressor party. And on the other hand, we are sending trucks of humanitarian food and other items to the other party. So what is this? I mean, this is either you don't supply weapons. So that means that there is something critically lacking in our approaches. And what is the solution? So here, the topic that we are discussing, values and spirituality, that will be the antidote for all the evils that we are witnessing in current society. Because, you see, spirituality has not to be confused with religion. Religion is separate. Spirituality is being in harmony with all the components of the universe. That means the material things, the biological things, the animals, and the human beings. So with all four components of universe, we have to be in harmony. And that harmony will start with self. Harmony with self. As you mentioned, madam, rediscover ourselves. So we have to start. The transformation of the world can happen only when each and every individual is given opportunity to transform. And I take this opportunity, as it is my favorite subject, to introduce my book, Who Am I? Is it visible? Yeah. A guide to discover your true self. So this has been rated 5-star by a New York-based rating agency. And its first version has been translated into 8 European languages also. So the thing is that we have to come to the real issues. And real issue is not lack of weapons or lack of proper diplomats, lack of leaders. The real issue is lack of values and spirituality, because we could not teach our children right from childhood the right values. And when they grow up, we are seeing all the evils in the society. So I'm happy that we have taken this topic today. It will not only be the foundation of a right diplomacy, but foundation for all the aspects of life. Thank you.
Professor Jagdish, indeed, the topic has the objective of changing perspective narratives regarding how the world, especially major world stakeholders, address interconnected problems. Coming back to you, dear Yulia, the world is actually facing some great changes along geopolitical lines, even economic lines, and most especially the social lives line. And of course, just to take a recent example where you see the United States telling China that it may impose sanctions on China if China aligns with Russia. This is pertaining the Russian-Ukraine crisis. And the question I want to ask is, in what ways can spirituality and moral values influence diplomatic negotiations and conflict resolution processes within the context of modern geopolitics, taking an example of the Russian-Ukraine crisis and even what the war in Gaza at the moment?
Well, the example you just gave is all about respect that is lacking at the moment at the international arena. Because once you have someone thinking that they have exceptional rights to dominate, to impose hegemony, and to tell everyone else what to do, there is no way you can have a balanced international relations system. So all of those examples just show that for some, any means are possible to use in order to achieve their goal and reach out and obtain resources, while others do not even have the right for life or for pushing for their own agenda, right? So those are the disbalances that we're looking at. When you talk about the Russia-Ukraine crisis, it's also very clear that the very foundations of foreign policies are different. So the Russian approach to a great extent is based on Orthodox religion, which is quite dominant in the Russian Federation. And the Orthodox religion, to a great extent, is all about patience. It's all about accepting others as they are, and it's all about not this kind of tolerance when you don't like something, but you accept it, but patience in terms of understanding processes, phenomena, and trying to embrace different aspects of life into your own picture, let's say. So Russia was not trying to intervene into internal processes in Ukraine, and it was patiently waiting for around 8 years, just watching how civilians were being attacked in Donbass and other areas. So it wasn't trying to impose its own understanding of things up until the threats have become super high, right? So this is another example of the geopolitical clash that you see at the global arena.
That this is a global insight on For You Media Africa, and we continue to look at the place of values and spirituality in defining, of course, modern day diplomacy. Mr. Eke, while talking earlier on, you highlighted that spirituality and values play an increasingly important role as foundations for modern diplomacy, and of course, you know that we are in a world where differences often leads to division and discord, of course, you know, but now there is actually some hope, or a beacon of hope, and a timeless notion that can really transcend borders and ideologies. So the question is, can the realms of values and spirituality merge to redefine the very essence of global relations, particularly taking example of the present challenges that the entire world is facing at the moment?
Well, I think values and spirituality can serve as important foundations for effective diplomacy in a variety of ways. I think you know, fostering dialogue and understanding is probably the first way that we can talk about. And this includes incorporating. This means incorporating an appreciation of religious values and spiritual perspectives into diplomatic practices, so that can help build bridges of mutual understanding between parties in a conflict. For example, in Ukraine conflicts, and you know, different Israel-Palestine conflicts, all these things. So by familiarizing themselves with the religious beliefs and practices that shape identities and worldviews in different cultures, you know, diplomats are better equipped to penetrate the heart of conflicts and uncover deeper interest that enable reconciliation, right? So the second thing that comes to mind is mobilizing religious leaders as peacemakers, right? So you know, religious leaders, they often command great respect and moral integrity or authority within their community. So engaging them as partners in diplomatic efforts can be a powerful strategy for conflict resolution and social healing especially in regions where religious identity is central to the strife. And so the involvement can lead or can lend spiritual legitimacy to peace processes. And so another aspect is the advocating advocating for religious freedom, right? So because we have so many issues going on in many countries, so restrictions on religious practice or religious practices and persecution of religious minorities also are major sources of tension in many societies. So it's important to promote religious freedom and tolerance through diplomatic channels. And so, and we can also talk about shaping national ethos, the values, that are embedded in religious and spiritual traditions often form the ethical foundation of national identity. So diplomatic engagement with these values, such as through interfaith initiatives, can gradually reshape, hostile perceptions of and collaborate and promote collaboration or collaborative ethos between people. So, but there are many challenges that remain in systematically integrating spirituality into diplomacy. We have many governments, especially government in the West, that are constrained by principles of separation of church and state. So they have to overcome those long-standing prejudices and resistance, and so to be able to demonstrate the peacemaking potential of religious values, while respecting the diversity in those countries. So ultimately, while say spirituality should not override other factors, it provides an important lens for understanding human behavior and identity beyond just political and economic terms. So so this is my answer to that question. Thank you.
And of course, talking about diversity, it's often said that there is beauty in diversity. And due to the fact that the world is interconnected under globalization, the world actually has different cultural backgrounds. And how can we use these positive cultural values to make the world a better place, say for mankind? To you, Professor Jagdish, let's look at the values. Some pundits and some critical thinkers have always said that if our values, if the decisions we take originates from our core values, maybe cultural values and even values defined at an intrinsic level, especially positive values, that will transcend to us making decisions that will not only favor you, but will favor the global world at large. We want to take, there's a common balance that U.S. first. We've noticed that the decisions, most decisions that the U.S. government takes will always put the U.S. first. And of course, we are looking at how with this, the world that is becoming more and more connected, how can countries redefine their core values or philosophies as underlined by EKEU to be able to inculcate decision making, especially on global issues, issues that have to do with human rights, conflict resolution, and of course dialogue, in maybe political dialogue and even social dialogue that can solve some of the pressing challenges faced by the global world.
Yeah, thank you. As you mentioned, diversity and inclusion, inclusivity, that has been now being talked about and used in the corporate world. But still, within our communities, within our societies, within nations, within regions, we have not been able to follow this principle. And that is why all the conflicts are there. All the reason for the conflicts is that we are not treating others as the fellow human beings. Like in Sikhism, there is a line, Manas ki jaat sabhe eke pehchan bo. That means treat all human beings belonging to one single race. So it's only human race. And once we have that feeling, then we treat everybody as equal. And then we provide them, we treat them with equity and equality. So this is the fundamental thing that has to happen. Another thing that I would like to mention is that why things are changing, why conflicts are unending, why we are seeing all the problems in spite of technological progress that has happened in the last 4-5 decades. So there is some mismatch happening. You see, what has happened is, as you will all agree, that during last few decades, there has been an absolute emphasis on technology, engineering, science, and that is how the other subjects like arts, humanities, social sciences, psychology, sociology, they have been neglected to the world, right from the schooling stage onward. So there is a disbalance between, you see, technology and humanities. They should not be treated as two banks of a river which can never meet, which are opposite to each other. No, that should not be there. Technology should be for the humanity and human welfare. Technology is not bad, but how we use it, or if we use it and go all out for technological things only, we feel that all our problems, all our solutions can come through technology. So there is, you see, what is happening in the armed conflicts now. All the parties, they are not concentrating on coming to the table for peaceful dialogue, but they are supplying more and more arms. They are asking for more and more arms, and the arms manufacturing, weapon manufacturing companies, they are prospering. All the rebellions in all the countries, they have got sophisticated arms. Who supplies them arms? So because we feel that by having missiles and jets and tanks, we can solve the current problem. No, all the problems can be solved only through peaceful negotiation. And that is what is not happening. Because somewhere our value system has deteriorated. We have not taught right values right from our schooling stage in past few decades, and now they are the diplomats, they are the leaders now. And even they are taking pride in killing civilians and innocent people. What is happening in Gaza is really so painful. I mean, we should, this generation will never always be blamed for not acting enough to stop this. So, diversity and dialogue, these are the two things coupled with democracy that can, these three Ds, diversities, dialogue, and democracy, these three together can help diplomacy, the fourth D, to find out the real solutions. That is my view.
Jagdish, diversity, dialogue, and democracy through making reaching decisions that will bring peace to the global world. We're looking at core values, dear Yulia, looking at diversities, and of course, a society actually has core values defining it. You mentioned of the position of Russia and the Orthodox Church. Now, let's come back to events happening around the world while trying to understand the topic better. Let's cite some examples. You know, recently the leadership of Ukraine, Zelensky, during an interview, said categorically that if the U.S. does not support or ceases to support the Kyiv government, it will not conquer, especially Russia in the bilateral agreement. Now, the question is, what core values govern the leadership of Ukraine pertaining the decisions? Let's look at the decisions that the leadership has been taken pertaining these the crises which have led us to where we are today. Do you think the leadership is diverting, especially from the positive core values that could help the country maybe solve some of these political, geopolitical, and even social problems it's facing right now? We're talking about the 2014 till data in Ukraine.
Well, at the moment, Ukraine is quite a failed state. At the moment, Ukraine is quite a failed state, meaning that it has external governance and they're not making sovereign decisions. But I'll be very brief in responding to this, because when you have the government that eliminates any kinds of political competition, any kinds of criticism in media, and makes the church reform, after which spirituality is attacked, just like the culture itself, the language that pretty much most of the people spoke in the country. You can easily say that they care about the land, they care about the resources, but they don't care about the ones living on that land. So simple as that. And Zelensky has signed a decree that outlaws any negotiations. So he has chopped his own hand off, losing the opportunity of a peaceful settlement, which means that a lot of Ukrainians are just being used as cannon fodder.
Given that I think it's at stake, not actually looking at Ukraine, but the global world at large, when we divert from these positive core values and face with these problems, you know, there's a political crisis across the globe, most especially social crisis, where you see issues like human rights violations, you see hunger, you see even the health related problems, and the way the international community especially handles the crisis. Let's take the place of the World Health Organization and the African continent pertaining the outbreak of the coronavirus and how it reacted to the continent's own remedy towards solving the health crisis. How can we bridge the gap to understand how maybe like we talked about diversity and inclusivity in every aspect? How can we analyze this, and what is the way forward? Still with you, Yulia.
So, well, when you look at the paradigm that was actively introduced by the so-called global elite, a lot of it is described by Klaus Schwab in his Fourth Industrial Revolution book, that basically talks about the changes that the global society would face due to technological advancement and due to new technologies that would be used to change our everyday life and to change our way of living. So when you take a closer look at what and how was being implemented, you will see that even in this book, the globe is perceived as a sort of a resource base or a farm where everything is focused on the interests of business, on the interests of big capital that is supposed to be multiplied, and the people and the quality of their life means a lot less. And as he says, Klaus Schwab, it's one of his famous quotations that people would own nothing and be happy about it, because you know, it's another approach towards changing the mentality as well, right? Indeed. So African continent, to a great extent, has been serving as this kind of a resource base that was used by the colonial powers. And I think that the timing you mentioned, the coronavirus pandemic, was an important moment for the Pan-African movement and for the movement for actual sovereignty, as people started realizing that something was terribly wrong in the way things were functioning, especially when those big scandals were breaking out, and especially when it was just simply logical to introduce the strict lockdowns and to introduce all the strict measures that prevented people from making their living. Yet the issue of the coronavirus itself wasn't that much topical in Africa like it was, let's say, in the European Union, where the population and the climate and the key characteristics, the input data was quite different. So we see here as well that there is a major cleavage between the West and the ex-colonial powers, let's say, and what they think in terms of the desired future of the world, and what the so-called global South is thinking, because the countries of the global South, including Africa, Asia, South America, a lot of those societies are much more traditional. They believe in God. They practice spiritual life to a great extent. They focus on family values, and they try to maintain the way of living that has proven to be effective strategically for thousands of years of human race history, right? But at the moment, one of the important bifurcation points will be dedicated specifically to this. How would we integrate the new technology coming into our life? What would be the core values still guiding us through and helping us to navigate through all of those inventions that would be changing our life? Just like Professor KHATRI was just saying that, you know, a lot depends on how you use those instruments, and you can take a knife and cut your food using that, or you can take the knife and kill someone with it, right? So a lot of responsibility is needed in order to own and possess various kinds of sophisticated technology and use it for the benefit of the people. So the current times we're living in and the transformation the world is going through will define a lot, and will define the future of humanity. So either we remain spiritual mammals that do practice their connection with the spiritual life, at the same time remaining, you know, human beings that are made of flesh and blood, or else we just become some kind of biorobots that would be disconnected from the spiritual component and would be just serving the purpose of producing something and increasing the value of the capital for somebody else.
And of course, that's where the bone of contention lies. Coming back to you, Mr. Eki, you highlighted some very pertinent issues and pertinent religion, I beg your pardon, and spirituality. I want us to contextualize this, looking at the African continent. Yulia has mentioned that the world is in greater transformation and major changes are actually taking place in the global world, and countries are conversant of these changes. Is it the change in technology, the advancement that have happened now? And when we bring diplomacy together with values and spirituality, we want to see how even with our core values we can benefit from all these changes, especially the positive changes across the African continent. But when you come to Africa on the aspects of religion and values, how has the spirituality and religion, because these are two different terms, in the context of indulging in maybe in the diplomatic life of countries across Africa, have they worked positively in defining Africa's voices around the globe? Because sometimes you hear people say the political life of a country does not concern me. All I need to do is just to pray. Do you think our spiritual leaders are defining values which are not meeting with the changing times, and how is it affecting the total transformation of the African continent?
Well, that's a fantastic, very long question, Clarice. But what I would say is technology it's liberating Africa today. We can see from the time where when we look at social medias today, right? Facebook, WhatsApp, all these technological instruments that were made in Europe, invented in Europe, and taken to Africa without knowing what the effect will be in Africa. And Africa was yearning for something like that, to be able to express its views on different issues around the world, including within their own continent. So by expressing themselves, this has revived, the new Pan-Africanism that has created, a concentration of efforts by different people in Africa located at different parts of the continent to come together and then focus their messages, right? And that powerful, very powerful message that they've been sharing with different medias, like this media, for example, or other medias, have reached masses in a way that they were just waiting, like people that are thirsty are waiting for the rain, or are looking for water to drink. So we were thirsty of information of how to express our views to those colonialist countries that came to this continent for seven centuries, has been pillaging the continent in left and right. So we had, the social media gave us that opportunity. This is why technology could be used in a positive way, instead of being used in a negative way, right? So for us, it has been an instrument of liberation for us, and we see the consequences today, every day. And even though Africa has been, Africa's culture have been, disrupted, for several centuries. The continent, even those who were enslaved, who came to the Caribbean country, who came to the United States, Brazil, and all these places, they kept their culture. They kept, their faith, their spiritualities. When you look at, people in Haiti today, they have those spirituality that they believe in, that came from Africa, and that gives them the strength to be able to kick out any person that comes, to defy them. So I would say technologies has really done a very good work for us, and we have to continue on that way. But we have to acknowledge that our continent has suffered for centuries, the colonialism, the slavery, and that really destroyed a lot of our mental strength. And so this in combination with the loss of population, that were killed or taken to slavery, the continent has gone through so much for the past few centuries. So And so what we witness today, our generation is witnessing some kind of rebirth of the continent. And, for the past 10 years, 10, 12 years, with this social media that popped up that allow people to express their views, to share their frustration, and then to suggest solutions, not just expressing their views and sharing their frustration, but also suggesting solutions. We observe, and if we look at the Central African, the French Africa, the French colonized African countries, we look at the AES countries, right?
Yeah.
Mali, Togo, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, and now we have Senegal. That's probably going to be joining the group, and we're hearing news from Chad that Chad wants to join with those other countries, and with Central Africa. So there is a movement that is slowly growing between, within Africa. And the old leaders who were put in place by the colonial masters are being, kicked out slowly, without any blood being shed. Everything so far has been done without any blood being shed so far, which is phenomenal. And with those countries, those colonial powers have been asked to leave the continent, so they are leaving. And so this is the power of spirituality, in Africa. We are getting things done without killing anybody, not even one person. So it shows the power of our values. Our values are mostly solidarity, understanding, and justice. So we want to make sure that those values that we hold dear are used effectively in solving different conflicts, in solving different issues, because we don't believe in war necessarily, because we think that there are different ways to solve issues, and there is no issues in this world that cannot be solved by peaceful means, dialogue, respect, respecting each other and things like that. So there isn't, unless you really don't want to solve the problem. And this is what we see on the world stage. United States and Europe, they don't want to listen to other people, other countries, other cultures. They just want to dominate. And as long as you have that view of the world that you should be dominating, regardless of what is your specific situation, then we are never going to get to conclude to a solution to our issues. And we see it today with Israel that is committing atrocities in Gaza. We see, the beginning of this conflict, of the Russian-Ukraine conflict, was what? People being killed in the Donbas regions for years, for about 8 years, nothing being done by those, so-called powerful countries. All they care about is about their personal interests or their country's interests. They don't care about other people's lives as long as it doesn't impede in their ability to be able to suck whatever they can suck from their from their resources. So this is the issue, the core issue. So just like you mentioned earlier, the United States go to China and tells China that they're going to sanction them if they don't stop supporting Russia. Okay, who gave you the power to go around and bossing other people, bossing other countries, bossing secular countries like China? Where do you get that power, that energy, that thought? If it's not ego, if it's not just domination for the sake of domination, they don't want people to grow. And it's like having, giving birth to a child, but you don't want that child to grow. You want that child to stay a child, regardless of what they do. So that's not going to happen. And this is where the main issues of the world lie. We need to, to put our egos on the side, come together, discuss important issues, so that the world can live in peace. Otherwise, we're always going to go into wars all the time. So, thank you.
Indeed, the goal is for the world to live in peace. Just to add to what you highlighted, pertaining the decisions or the events which have unfolded across the African continent without a bloodshed, of course, and that is really commendable. I remember yesterday, it was yesterday that the Ivorian Charles Blair Goody was during a press conference. He actually highlighted the fact that we can attain that objective without actually killing people, and he was intentional about redefining us the ways we press for reforms. It's not about going to kill, but we can get those reforms alive and enjoy from the endowment of the global world, and that is very imperative and very commendable of Africa. It is not war. We can have other means of deriving solutions by attaching our decisions to our core values. We can make some very practical and positive decisions that will prosper the global world. And on the issue of international, the place of the U.S. In Russia-Ukraine crisis, and even the crisis between Israel and Palestine, and we want to see if with the changes occurring in the world, we can redefine international relations that will shift from just power and how power is being used to how the world can maybe bridge the gaps of division existing between them to be able to come to a common ground where we have collaboration, where we have compromise and understanding to situations that are of global interest. And with you, to you, Professor Jagdish, I haven't heard everything that has been advocated so far. We continue to look at the place of values and spirituality in defining maybe foreign policies, of course. So the question is, to what extent can spiritual and ethical consideration influence foreign policies or shape foreign policies of countries, particularly in relation to issues such as, arms control, peace building, and international security? Professor Jagdish?
The microphone.
As far as India is concerned, madam, we have always been supporting the third world countries, especially Africa, like you saw in AU coming to G20. And we are always interested in helping African continent as well as its people in skill building, in uplifting, and so that they regain the rightful place in the Committee of Nations. Now, this attitude of, you see, we have a saying, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is one family. And that is what India believes in, and always trying to work upon it. Only thing is that right from education stage, we have to inculcate right values and spirituality. Because what has happened is that educational institutions, they are becoming factories of producing human resources. But I would like to mention here is that in my view, you cannot be a good human resource unless you are a good human being first.
Absolutely.
So let us be good human beings. And once you are good inside, you will be greater outside any day. So that is what is to be stressed upon. And that is what is to be stressed upon in international relations, in foreign policy formulations. As you see, India has always maintained a balanced approach between US and Russia, and not taken extreme views on any of the issues. So we believe in humanitarian approach, and what is happening is the problem is that out of spiritual, we have only taken the last alphabet's ritual. So it has become a ritual to talk about it but not put into practice. So being spiritual means being in harmony, and that harmony has to be come right from beginning. And once again, I would like to stress that there has been so much technologification of humanity. I point the word technologification of humanity, where we feel that all things can be solved through technical gadgets, through internet, and there is no human intervention required. But what is required is humanization of technology, so that the technology is useful used for the peaceful purposes, for developing people from for welfare of the mankind. So that is what has to be stressed upon in all aspects. And once we say all aspects, it includes relationship at international levels also. Of course, we find that at international forums, some international forums need to reorganize themselves so that they can play the active role that they were supposed to play and not take one-sided view of the things, as we have seen in the recent past. So that is where the third world countries have to unite, support each other in developing and reaching out their full potential. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's about reaching the full potential that will define how we make decisions that will prosper the global world, reduce the number of wars that we have around us, and make the place, the world, a safe haven for mankind. Let me come back to you. Achilles, okay, we are looking at core values, we are looking at the spirituality and how it can help us, or this can help us to define our diplomacy with other countries, foreign policies, and even on aspects of our sovereignty. Let's take back, I can't tell the precise date, but we remember that the Gambia, that was under former President Yahya Jammeh, actually criminalized homosexuality. And it was an international financial institution that came outrightly saying that it won't actually loan money to the Gambia for taking such decisions. Let's see how the conflict between internal policies and international policies, how they help to derail actually some countries from having the access to maybe finance that can help prosper the country, and see where we can bridge this gap and reach a common ground. We talked about a level where we can have compromise and collaboration on aspects of international or global importance.
Right. So this is a very good example that you took, and we see that not only in Gambia, we see that in Uganda, right? So Uganda is a very potent case, a very good example of how we see that in Uganda. We also saw it in Ghana recently. Also, so the World Bank and the International Monetary Funds, they are using the financial resources to blackmail those African countries into submission, into recognizing or accepting practices that are not part of their value system. So this is one of the issues that the whole world is facing. We have a group of countries who have decided to impose on others their value system, whatever constitutes their value system. And so it's something that other countries, especially old countries, secular countries like, continent of Africa in general, people of the South, let me just put it this way. Countries of the South, they reject those values. They reject those practices, and they want to force those countries into submission, into accepting. Yes, under the excuse of human rights, right? So this is always the this is a passport that they use, when they want to how you submit it. They want to submit you. They show, hey, human rights. If you don't, allow human rights, you don't allow these practices in your country, then it's a human right violation. And we are standing firm. The good thing is, on this front, I've seen African countries stand firm. I've seen Cameroon, reject an ambassador who was a French ambassador who was supposed to be, who is, part of these, those value system that they want to, propagate around the world. I saw the Cameroonian government, refuse, to admit an ambassador in Cameroon. I've seen, so there are various strategies or techniques that they use through movies, through all kind of activities, non-profit organizations. They use all kind of tools to, interfere in our value system, to interfere in our countries, in our societies, in our culture, and disrupt those. All because of the idea of, that we need to stay submissive. You need to be, we need to remain poor countries. And so it's one of the reasons that we keep talking about the value system that could be problematic for some of the European countries. We don't know what their value systems are anymore. We don't. Normally, Christian countries, they have, those value systems that we know from being, churchgoers. They have their humanistic values, human dignity values, honesty, integrity, open-mindedness and tolerance, right? So we don't see those values, anymore. So, you do something that I don't approve of in your country, then I'm going to come to you and blackmail you with money. Say, okay, if you don't do what I do, then if you don't accept, what we do here into your culture, we're not going to give you money. So what is that? So this is why we're seeing a revolt all over the world today. Russia is leading that. China also is leading that. And, Africa is following. And so many countries have decided, no, we're not going to follow those that value system anymore because we think it's an abomination. It's counter to what humans should be doing. So that's the value system that we have, and we've grown into that. We don't understand what they're trying to make us do. So this is the reason why we have to rethink. The whole world has to rethink. What a relationship between countries should be. We have to rethink the norms, the values, the value system that are shared, commonly around the world. We have to review, all these things, and then make some changes. Otherwise, what we see today is going to remain, or maybe get worse as we go, because we now see the European countries or the West is isolated against the whole world. So that's probably going to remain the same if things don't change, from their standpoints, because whatever they're pursuing is not shared by other countries in the world.
Thanks to the rebirth, thanks to the new winner of the renaissance across the global world, and particularly across Africa, because some political actors have been very firm on standing by the values that define the African continent. And I think if this can transcend to all sectors, political, economic, social, then the world will be a better place. Coming back to you, Yulia, in line with the question that Mr. EKEU just answered. Now we want to see, understand how, or answer to the question now, how do political rhetorics overshadow core values on very important aspects? We're talking about, let's take the case of the homosexuality and the stance of African countries, and now the stance of European countries, and even multilateral, multinational institutions that now the question is, how do these political rhetorics overshadow core values and even taint foreign policies or even diplomacy?
Well, you see, I think the current conflict that we're observing globally, or current transformation, it's not just about economy or geopolitics or resource bases, but it's a multi-layer one. And a lot of it has to do with metaphysical level. So at the metaphysical level, we can say that this current clash is like the famous Russian writer Dostoevsky said that it's a battle between the good and the evil, and the battleground is the heart of every human being. So this is basically what we see, and just like Professor KHATRI was saying, it always makes a lot more sense to start with your own self, because this is something that you can definitely take under control, and then to expand it to a bigger volume, I would say. So the current conflict, the current clash, can be perceived just like that, where the battlefield is human being hearts.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, dear Yulia. Professor Jagdish, this question is actually you mentioned, and you were categorical to say you can only be a good human resource if you are a good human being. That is to say, in terms of your attitude or the attributes that define you as a human. And I know that it would transcend into you making very practical decisions as a leader that will prosper the continent or the society where you live. So how can we change these political rhetorics in the global world to ensure that our cultural values, especially in the global south, as underlined already, are not actually faded amidst all the changes that are occurring at the global level in terms of international relations and even collaboration?
Yeah. What I feel, madam, is that once we inculcate the right values of trust, tolerance, interreligious harmony, compassion, understanding into our people, the transformation world will be transformed not by infrastructure, not by weapons, not by anything else, but by people. And once we concentrate on people development with right skills and right attitude, then transformation will come. This transformation will not come because of politicians. Please allow me to say it will not come because of politicians, but it will come in spite of politicians. So that is the role, values and spirituality, and right emphasis on values and spirituality can take place. Now, one more aspect I would like to cover here is that there is a new aspect being carried out by certain scientists, that is scientific diplomacy. And that says that let us use science for diplomacy and diplomacy for science. And once we inculcate science plus conscience into diplomacy, then it will be the right diplomacy, getting the right results. Otherwise, such kind of conflicts that we are watching almost helplessly and hopelessly, they will continue because of lack of values. If somebody is getting satisfied by killing civilians, children, then it shows the mental attitude, the lack of values. And that is why we need to develop and choose right leaders. Maybe it may take some time. But the process must start of emphasizing on values and spirituality right from education and into business, into politics, into diplomacy, into everything that we have. So that will be the only thing that can bring transformation in the life of people. Thank you.
You briefly, because we are culminating already, Professor Jagdish. I haven't listened to all you've said on that point. Now, where is the place of the major world stakeholders? It's true that this change will not come from political leaders alone, but from you and I, from the civil society, and of course, it starts from the mind. But now, where is the place of the major actors in decision, global decision making, to ensure that the decisions they take should not affect the value-based frameworks, especially the core values that hold even the sovereignty of nations?
In fact, as you can see, at India, we are trying to play
You're muted, Professor.
a role into bringing this transformation, but it needs to be supported by all the countries, all the people, the civil society, the NGOs, and institutions to bring out that transformation. Because one country or one leader alone cannot do. And in any case, what we are observing today is not on fiscal deficit, but more leadership deficit. There is a leadership deficit in the world because we are not having the right kind of leaders, and whatever leaders we have, they are not able to solve the problems, the conflicts, etc. So we need to develop right leaders with values and spiritual outlook also, and humanitarian attitude. And another thing that this spirituality will bring is more and more trust, and that will cover the trust deficit that is there between nations, between communities within a nation also. And that is what these two deficits we have to cover: leadership deficit and trust deficit.
You, Mr. Ike, as we are culminating the program, the question is, we always end with solutions. Now, in your own perspective, you know, let's even take the example of Cameroon. We know the socio-political crisis, which have been ongoing for some years now, and we can largely say that it is this crisis stemmed from some sort of differences in core values and other aspects which are inborn. So what is the way forward using this platform to advocate for a solution that will stem? Do you think that if we can try to build trust and reconcile on core values across Cameroon, that will already be a way towards ending this crisis, which has engulfed lives and even destroyed property?
Is that for me, Clarice? Okay. Which conflict are we talking about here? Which conflict are we...
crisis in Cameroon, predominantly in the English-speaking region.
Right. I believe it's another failure of government. That conflict in Cameroon started with people trying to express their frustration, and so the government used demeaning ways to try to prevent those people from expressing their views, and that led, one thing led to another, and then an armed conflict started. And so I think, at the end of the day, every conflict has to stop within, by negotiation or around the table, right? So we have to use diplomacy to solve. And, force has never really, been a real way of solving conflicts, in in a meaningful manner. So it's important that the government, and especially in Cameroon, which is a very country that has so many resources, but it's mismanaged, in a way that's really very astonishing. So the government has to, find a way to talk to its citizens, regardless of what language they speak, and come to a solution that is amenable to for everybody, and that will be over. Every time we try to behave as the U.S. is behaving on the world stage, things don't get done. Conflict just exacerbate and ruin our resources, because the resources we are pouring into finding, other citizens within the same country, we could have used that to build roads, to build schools, to educate our people, to, give them jobs, create the jobs, and so on. So it's just a bad idea to try to solve conflicts with military force, and this is true for every country that has issues, whether it's Palestine and Israel. The Palestinian and Israel issue is very simple to solve, but they don't want to be, they don't want a solution. Especially Israel doesn't want a two-state solution that was proposed, decades ago. That would have been, solved a long time ago, and they're trying to revive that today. But we see how it goes. But and there's a responsibility of the United States in that conflict. We can't avoid that. It's it has a responsibility of trying to get Israel to understand that peaceful or long long and peaceful relationship with your neighbors is critical for your people too. It's not just because you have weapons, you can bombard and kill people who have no weapons, that you're going to be happy living in that kind of environment. So they have to understand that. So it's their own interest, it's their own security to make sure that the Palestinians have their own state, they can manage themselves without depending on Israel or other countries. And the same for the Ukraine war. So all these conflict we have could be really solved if we have leaders that are very strong, that have strong values, and
people
and so that
as well, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just was complimenting our leadership that is people oriented.
Yes, absolutely. People who have, who care about, the humanity, dignity of a human being, who are, tolerant, open-minded, because we understand this is a very complex world. If you come in, with the mindset that, okay, we are Americans, we are the badass folks, we're the bad guys, we are the tough folks on the planet. If you mess with me, I'm going to cut your head. Hey, if you come with that mentality, that's not going to work. Nothing will work, because you're always going to find people to stand up to you. And so when we have humility, honesty, and we have solidarity, and then we're very cooperative, the world is going to be a better place to live. So that's the wish that I have, that all of the other countries have. But we know it's going to be difficult to attain, because in the history of humankind, there is always somebody who wants to dominate. And as long as somebody wants to dominate, there's always going to be conflict. And regardless of where that conflict arises from, regardless of the reasons, there's always someone who wants to dominate the world. But the best way to prevent that is to for the world to have some kind of balance in powers, the balance of powers. That is the way to regulate, to make sure no one can destroy other countries, just like
All right, thank you. This is actually an interesting topic, but we don't have much time because we have to give room for other programs. But I do promise that we'll come back to such topics subsequently, because I think, like you highlighted, values and diplomacy can help us solve the problems that the global world is facing. I want to thank you immensely, Yulia BERG, for the great insight you joined in your capacity as a political scientist and also founder GLOBUS Expert Club. Achilles EKEU, banker, international financial expert, and Professor JAGDISH KHATRI as a speaker, author, and also global analyst. I'm your host, Clarice WIYDORVEN BERI. So thank you so much for trusting the Pan-African television, and to remember, it's another view of the world. So now we draw the curtains into this edition of Global Insight. But don't go away, yeah? Stay with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Achilles. Thank you, Yulia, madam. Thanks to the little child also who was there. So that was wonderful to have such insights over here. And thanks for the opportunity, madam.
Thank you.
Julia, madam, please.